I just wanted to share a little bit about this Oklahoma City memorial here because it has some personal connections to me, actually. And I found it just so incredibly poignant and amazing. So let me just, first of all, give a recap. So 1995, the federal building in Oklahoma City is bombed by Timothy McVeigh. If you're of a certain age, you probably remember that event. And I actually graduated high school that year in 1995. And here's the thing, I worked for the federal government for 16 years, and every year on April 19th, we would get an email about the bombing, but you never can grasp these historical events until you're there. This is my passion as a history major, is I like mixing the history and the travel because I just find it so much more interesting when you're actually there. So let me just walk you through what happened here real quick, and then I'll tell you some of the symbolism of this memorial. So right here where this pond is, this was the street in front of the federal building in 1995. Over there, where you can see those memorials and the trees, that is where the federal building was. So all those trees right there are actually like the footprint of the building. They all go around and kind of shows you the size of the building. Timothy McVeigh parked his truck right there on the sidewalk. Okay, so Jim is saying he worked with a lot of people who were in the building, and it is now at the museum. Wow. So Timothy McVeigh parked his truck right there, and the explosion went that way into the building. Actually went all the way around, but it exploded in front of the building and blew up 2/3 of the building. Just the most mind-boggling destruction. Is just crazy. And all the chairs there are people who died in the bombing. Now, I think there's over 160 people who died in the bombing. And I wish I was over there, but if I walk over there, I'd probably shake the camera too much. But anyway, each of those is based on the floor that they were on. Now, here's kind of where it gets personal to me. The first row of those chairs there is the longest row. They were on the first floor, and of course, they got the brunt of the blast and also all the rubble falling on them. Those were all Social Security workers. Well, probably most or almost all were Social Security workers. That's where I worked, was Social Security Administration. So just like to see that is just really, really touching and crazy. The next level was, there was a daycare. So a lot of those chairs are smaller chairs to represent the children that were in the daycare that passed away. Now, in terms of the memorial here, what we have is two big walls on each end of this pond here. So this wall here, I can't remember quite the name of these walls, but this is something like the Wall of Peace. And so it says 901 on it. So 901 was the minute before the blast. 902 is when the blast went off. And this is what the pond represents. The moment when their lives were changed forever. And then down there, the wall says 903. And I think the ranger told me that's the moment of recovery. That's when recovery begins, 903. Interesting thing about this site is that it's run by the Oklahoma City National Memorial something or other. There's like an organization that runs it. But they run it in conjunction with the National Park Service. So there was a ranger right here just a minute ago, and I walked over to him and I said, What are you doing here? I didn't think this was a national park site. And he said, well, we run it in conjunction with them. I think I didn't even know this, but I guess there's there's over 100 sites around the country where the National Park Service, works with a place to run the site or to help them out or whatever. So he talked to me forever. That was just an incredible conversation I had with the ranger. And he taught me a lot about the symbolism out here. I wanted to show you this tree here. This is, and it has an interesting story because when the blast went off over here, it not only damaged the building, but it went this way, of course, and it damaged 10, I think he said there was 10 buildings that were damaged beyond repair, and another, like several more buildings that were damaged in the whole blast. In fact, he said in Norman, Oklahoma, that's where they measure the earthquakes around here. And it measured as a 3.5 on the Richter scale earthquake. So that's 20 miles away. So that's how just crazy the blast was. But in the blast, this tree has an interesting story because all the leaves, of course, were just blown off of the tree, and it got a bunch of shrapnel. The tree was actually planted here in the 1920s, and then as the city urbanized around it, they just left it there, and so they always like did the parking lots and the roads around the tree, and so the tree was just kind of here forever. And then in the bombing, or in the blast, all the leaves were blown off, and there was shrapnel all embedded in the tree, even today. And after the blast, as they were kind of planning the memorial out, they were trying to decide whether to keep the tree or not. They actually didn't know whether the tree would live. So they kind of had to wait like a summer or two to see if that tree was going to rebound, which it did. And they hired an arborist guy to come in and examine the tree. That guy ended up running all the grounds here on the memorial for 30 years. He just barely retired last year. But in looking at the tree, he said, yeah, this is going to survive. And they decided to make it a part of the memorial. So I thought that was really cool. You can see the wall around it here, and it's called the survival tree, and it's just a symbol of the survival. Just the mentality of surviving such an enormous act of evil, and so that's a big part of the outdoor memorial here. So the whole memorial itself is this outdoor area, which you could just visit for free, and again, it would mean a lot more if you could talk to the ranger. And then this building here is the actual museum. And so I think it costs like $18 or $20 or something like that to go into the museum. And the museum was incredibly well done. I mean, oh man, that told the story in such an amazing way. Words can't even barely even express how amazing it is. I did have a lot of questions as I came out about some of Timothy McVeigh's motives and a few other connections that the ranger helped to answer for me. But as you go through the museum, I mean, it is just, you got to take your time going through there if you're going to do it, and it's totally worth it. In fact, I went through it and kind of thought that I had everything, from the story that I needed. And then when I got out here to talk to the ranger and I started looking at all the symbolism and the placement of things, he just started telling me a bunch more about it, and I would say it like doubled my knowledge and just experience and all that of this amazing site. So I don't know. It was such a touching thing here today that I just wanted to share that with anybody who wanted to listen. And if you're in Oklahoma City, it's definitely something you got to do. I also went to the let's see if it's on my shirt here, National Cowboy Hall of Fame and Museum today, and that was epic. I mean, that was incredible, the museum, the Cowboy Museum. So Oklahoma City is really delivering, and it's just such a beautiful time of year, and I'm excited to be here. But thanks for joining me on this little tour of Oklahoma City Memorial. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, we'll see you guys later. If I can figure out how to turn it off, that is.